The sound of the heart monitor was the only thing keeping Garrett upright that night. Each beep was a fragile reminder that his 6-year-old daughter, Rosie, was still fighting. Her tiny frame lay motionless beneath a blanket too big for her, a tangle of wires and tubes surrounding her like vines. Garrett sat slumped in the hard plastic chair beside her bed, his calloused hands trembling as he counted every beep, praying none would be the last. He hadn't slept in 2 days. His wallet was empty, his body aching, but none of that mattered. Rosie needed a kidney transplant, and the number burned in his mind like fire. $120,000. That if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of love that defies all odds, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Bright Hearts, because this story will remind you that even miracles can come from the most unexpected places. Garrett was a plumber by day, a night janitor by evening, and a delivery driver past midnight. He had sold his car, pawned his wedding ring, and eaten cold ramen for weeks. The doctors told him Rosie's condition was worsening. That time was slipping away. Every night, he'd whisper to her, "Daddy's gonna fix this, sweetheart. Just hold on." But even he no longer believed those words. Then came the night everything changed. It was nearly 2 a.m. when his phone buzzed, a last-minute emergency plumbing call from a high-rise downtown. He almost ignored it, but he couldn't risk losing the extra money. So he wiped his eyes, kissed Rosie's forehead, and whispered, "Back soon, my angel." The address took him to the top floor of an expensive building, the kind where people never had to think about hospital bills. The penthouse belonged to Aria Langford, a CEO whose name he'd seen on billboards. He expected a burst pipe. What he didn't expect was to find the powerful, icy woman sitting on the floor in designer heels, mascara running down her face, her bathroom flooded. "Pipe burst," she said in a hoarse voice, brushing at her tears. "I tried to fix it. I made it worse." Garrett knelt without a word and got to work. The water was cold, and the tile cut his hands, but within minutes, the flow was stopped. When he looked up, Aria was staring at him, really staring, as if she saw something beyond the dirt-streaked uniform and exhaustion in his eyes. "Thank you," she murmured. Then, as if deciding something in that moment, she asked softly, "You have a daughter, right? I heard you talking about her on the phone." He hesitated, surprised. "Yeah, Rosie. She's sick." Aria's expression changed. Something raw, almost desperate flickered behind her calm mask. "I'm sorry," she said, and then there was silence. She stood, pacing, biting her lip as if wrestling with an idea. Then she turned to him and said the words that made Garrett's world tilt. "I need a boyfriend to meet my parents this weekend." He thought she was joking, but she wasn't. Her voice trembled as she explained that her mother was dying, that she'd begged to meet the man Aria was supposedly dating. Aria had told her she wasn't alone, because her mother worried she'd buried herself too deeply in work to find love. Now, with her mother's health fading fast, Aria needed to make that lie real. "I'll pay you," she said quietly. "However much you need." Garrett almost laughed, until she named the price. $120,000. He froze, the wrench slipping from his fingers. That was the exact amount the hospital demanded for Rosie's surgery. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then, with his heart hammering, Garrett whispered, "You're serious?" Her answer was simple. "Completely." The next morning, Garrett stood in front of a mirror wearing a borrowed suit that fit like a dream and smelled faintly of cologne he couldn't pronounce. Aria had arranged everything: new clothes, a haircut, even a driver to pick him up from the hospital after saying goodbye to Rosie. She'd squeezed his hand and said, "Just 2 days, Mr. Moore. Then your daughter gets her chance." He nodded, though his stomach twisted with guilt. He wasn't the kind of man who lied. But when he looked at Rosie's pale face, he reminded himself, this was for her. The drive to Aria's family estate felt like crossing into another world. The mansion sat on rolling green hills, sunlight glinting off glass windows that stretched toward the sky. Her parents were warm, kind people, nothing like the cold corporate air Aria carried around her office. Her mother, Eleanor, had a voice soft as a lullaby, though her cough hinted at fragility. She clasped Garrett's hands and smiled. "I'm so glad Aria finally found someone who looks at her the way you just did." Garrett blushed. He hadn't realized he had been looking at her. Maybe because Aria, away from boardrooms and polished speeches, was different. He saw the woman beneath the power, The daughter who read her mother bedtime stories at 40, who laughed when her father burned the toast. He saw her as human. As the hours passed, Garrett slipped into the role naturally. He told stories about how they met at the hardware store, how she'd insisted on fixing a faucet herself and flooded her kitchen. Arya laughed genuinely for the first time in years, her laughter echoing through the house like sunlight. And every time she laughed, her mother smiled wider. That night, after dinner, Garrett found Arya outside on the porch, wrapped in a blanket. The moonlight brushed her hair as she whispered, "My mother doesn't have long. I just want her to believe I'll be okay when she's gone." He swallowed hard. "She will believe it. You're giving her peace. That's love, Arya." For the first time, her eyes softened. "And you, Garrett, you're giving your daughter hope. Maybe we're both pretending, but somehow it doesn't feel fake anymore." The words hung in the air, fragile and dangerous. He wanted to reach for her hand, but stopped himself. This wasn't real. It couldn't be. The weekend passed too quickly. On the last morning, Eleanor held Arya close and whispered something in her ear. When Arya pulled away, tears stained her cheeks. Then Eleanor turned to Garrett and said, "Take care of her, son." Garrett's heart clenched. For a moment, he wished it were true. They left that afternoon, silence heavy between them. Back in the city, Arya handed him a check. Her voice cracked slightly as she said, "It's all there. You saved more than just my mother's peace, Garrett. You saved me." He wanted to thank her, to tell her she'd saved him, too, but the words refused to come. He only nodded, clutching the check like a lifeline. A week later, Rosie went into surgery. Arya sent flowers every day, but never visited. Garrett stayed by his daughter's side through every painful step of recovery, whispering stories about the kind lady who helped them. He told Rosie that angels don't always wear wings. Sometimes they wear high heels and hide their hearts behind steel. Months passed. Rosie got stronger. Life, though still hard, began to feel possible again. Then one sunny afternoon, Garrett walked out of the hospital to find a familiar car parked at the curb. The window rolled down, and Arya smiled, softer now, freer somehow. "I heard Rosie's home," she said. "May I meet her?" Inside the hospital garden, Rosie shyly handed Arya a crayon drawing of 3 stick figures holding hands. "That's you, Daddy, and me," she said. "'Cause Daddy says you're part of our story now." Arya's eyes shimmered. She knelt down, hugging the little girl gently. "I think you're part of mine, too," she whispered. As Garrett watched them, a warmth bloomed in his chest. Something like gratitude, something like love. For the first time in a long time, the future didn't feel empty. It felt possible. Life had brought them together through desperation, but it was compassion that kept them there. 2 broken souls, each trying to save someone they loved, had found something unexpected in the process, a reason to hope again. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Bright Hearts to keep spreading stories that remind us kindness still exists in this world.